Hello everybody, welcome to our time together. I'm just going to start the session with the sound of infinity. Hope you enjoyed that. Now, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who watched the last clip, and especially those who liked it. I do appreciate likes, so sending you lots of positive energy, and thanks for the comments as well. It motivated me to do more, so thanks a lot. I'm continuing talking about the book The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard, and we're on assumptions really, which is very important in manifesting whatever you want in the world. We have to assume that we already have it, even though we can't see it, and then it will appear in our world. So how do we assume when we can't see something? That is the question, isn't it, everybody? So I'm going to start by looking at chapter 4 on desire, because everything starts with desire and wanting something. We all want something, don't we? And there's nothing wrong with that. God puts the desires in our heart. So it's like seeds that he plants, and it's up to us if we want to nurture them and bring them to fruition in our world. But everything already exists in the imagination. And so what we have to do is rest in it and believe that we already have it, which we do because everything exists already. And when we rest in it, we have it. And that's the big irony, because we live in the world of the senses and we can't see everything that's in the imagination. There's a process of time that takes place. So when you rest in something, you don't know how long it's going to take before it appears in objective reality, which is our everyday life. And so it requires patience and persistence, the 2 P's. So that's the essence of it. But when I look at the chapter on desire, the main point for me is an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. So the assumption is false because we can't see it yet. We're believing that we are somebody that we're not yet, and that we have something that we don't have yet. But it is true because everything exists in the imagination. So that's why studying the teachings of Neville Goddard, reading the scripture associated with what he says, is so important, because it builds up your faith that this is true. And then that can really help your assumptions to be true assumptions, not just saying, I am this, I am that, and then wondering why doesn't it work? Because somewhere inside you don't truly believe it. You have to believe it. So your faith in the teachings can really help that to be easy. So we have to persist in our assumptions. Now, in the last clip I spoke about how sometimes I had some kind of inner yes experience. So I agreed to something, agreed to a belief in something, and then I didn't give it any more thought. And I gave the example of how I recently had a change of job description and got another job. And it wasn't particularly something that I was looking for. I wasn't looking for it. In fact, I did want to stay in my old position. It was the senior leadership in my school that decided we're going to change it and you're going to be teaching the younger children instead. But then I remembered a long time ago, I was thinking if I could teach any year group, it would be reception, which is 4 to 5, because I really like the creativity. And I remember thinking reception year 1 and this inner yes and believing it, and then just let it go. I didn't do any imagining because it wasn't something I was particularly wanting to happen. And so then it happened recently, and I remembered that I had thought about it and there'd been this inner agreement. So that was a momentary thought for me, but I just thought, yeah, and then I forgot about it. So I do believe that it doesn't have to be something that you are imagining a lot every single day and working really hard to make that assumption fact. I think it can happen like that, and it does happen like that all the time, because we're often unconsciously assuming things. It's all about our belief system, what we believe to be true. And then if we believe something's true, it starts to appear in our world, and that just verifies our belief. We think, yeah, see, it is true because of that, but we're really creating it by our mind. But if I think about the self-concept, that essentially we need to change our concept of self to create a new reality for ourselves, I do believe that takes more time. Although it could just be a moment if you really believe it. But Neville Goddard speaks about imagining how you would look, and you see that image in front of you, and then you walk into your body and you look at the world around you through those eyes, and you interact with others as the new concept of self. So you've achieved your dream, you've achieved your aim, you're more confident because of it, and people are looking at you in a different way. Maybe they're really impressed, or they're congratulating you, things like that. So you have an imaginary scene, and then you freeze it, and you experience the feeling that you get from achieving your dream, and then you rest in that feeling and assume it's done, and then just carry around that feeling as much as you can throughout the day, or dip into the imaginary scene and bring the feeling up again. And that's how it's done until your image, your new image of yourself, your new concept becomes what you are in everyday reality. So for me personally, I think that would take some time, but the actual core beliefs can just be in a moment. Anyway, that's the essence of desire, I think. It's by cultivating the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the desire becomes the promise of its own fulfillment. So you have to start with desire, obviously, and then you go to the end scene, how it would feel if your desire became a fact, and you live in that feeling as much as possible throughout the day. Now, chapter 5 is the truth that sets you free. What is the truth that sets you free? Well, it says here, the truth that sets you free is that you can experience in imagination what you desire to experience in reality. And by maintaining this experience in imagination, your desire will become an actuality. So this implies that you have to maintain an experience. So it does imply more effort from what I'm saying with the momentary experience. So I'm going to read a bit of this and then comment on it. So I hope you like that and get something from it. Okay, so it starts off. The drama of life is a psychological one in which all the conditions, circumstances, and events of your life are brought to pass by your assumptions. So that's a very powerful start. When you think that if you believe this, everything that happens in your world is brought about by your assumptions. It's so important that you assume positive things for yourself, isn't it? If we're just thinking, if we're entertaining ourselves by thinking negatively about people and having an imaginary argument with them, that's not going to bring good things into our lives, is it? And that's what I do sometimes. I definitely do that. And the scripture in Philippians chapter 4, it says about thinking on things that are of good report and thinking on the lovely. And there is a reason for that, because if we focus on the good things that we want, it's actually going to have an effect, a physical effect, and it will come into our world. But if we are thinking negatively, then the reverse is true. So we have to really believe that to stop ourselves from thinking of the negative. It's a funny thing with human beings. We do tend to focus on the negative naturally, so we need to make a real effort to focus on the positive, I think anyway. Excuse me. Okay, since your life is determined by your assumptions, you are forced to recognize the fact that you are either a slave to your assumptions or their master. To become the master of your assumptions is the key to undreamed of freedom and happiness. You can attain this mastery by deliberate conscious control of your imagination. You determine your assumptions in this way. Form a mental image, a picture of the state desired, of the person you want to be. Concentrate your attention upon the feeling that you are already that person. First, visualize the picture in your consciousness, then feel yourself to be in that state as though it actually formed your surrounding world. By your imagination, that which was a mere mental image is changed into a seemingly solid reality. So there is a strong focus there, I think, on the feeling it creates for you. So you're using your imagination, you're seeing what you want to see in everyday reality, and then you're focused on the feeling it creates. It's so much about feeling. Feeling does bring things into your world, but it's combined with assuming that that's a fact. So you have to have both. Three things, I would say: imagination, feeling, and assumption. But the most important out of those, I think, is assumption. Because assumption, I think, covers it all. But do all three of them anyway. It's all about your concept of self is what brings your dream to you. It brings situations to you. And that's all about your belief system. So everything you believe to be true about the world, and that you're sending that out. And so whatever's coming back to you is about some belief you have. So that's why it's so important to change your self-concept. I'm really sorry I'm sounding so croaky at the moment, but I've started, so I will finish. Just have a bit more to drink. It would be really good if people shared some assumptions that they've had, and if they believe that that's brought certain things into their world. Because it's very interesting just how we often blame people for things in our world. But when we really think about it, it's something we've sent out. And so once we can gain a bit more balance and the emotions have moved away, it's really good to think, so how could we have created that situation? What beliefs are we sending out that have brought that back? And if you're totally honest with yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself, you will find something. And then the more you see that, the more careful you will be about what you send out. Anyway, this is really good, this part. The great secret is a controlled imagination and a well-sustained attention, firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished. It cannot be emphasized too much that by creating an ideal within your mental sphere, by assuming that you are already that ideal, you identify yourself with it and thereby transform yourself into its image. This was called by the ancient teachers subjection to the will of God, or resting in the Lord. And the only true test of resting in the Lord is that all who do rest are inevitably transformed into the image of that in which they rest. Resting in the Lord. We need to do more of that. The Lord is the inner man. It's the power within us. It's the imagination. And when we rest in the assumption created by the imagination, we are, in some strange way, beginning to create that image to appear in our world. It's forming from resting in the Lord. I just thought I should make up little songs about these important concepts, really annoyingly catchy things that stick in people's heads, but it would help to remember it, I think. Maybe that's not a good idea. Resting in the Lord. Let's rest in the Lord. Rest in the assumption. And affirmations can help. Saying I am a success in whatever chosen area. And then that can bring up the imagined act and the assumption. So whatever helps to get you back into resting in the Lord. I think that's the key part of this chapter. So I'm just going to skim through the rest of it. Just the ending. You are limited only by your uncontrolled imagination and lack of attention to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. So again, we go back to the wish fulfilled, this idea of how would it feel if my dream, my desire, had come to pass in the world. And you rest in that end state. You go to the end, as Neville Goddard always used to say. And you feel that feeling and you assume it's done. And then just get on with everyday life. But just have that feeling it's done. And the more you imagine it, the more you will assume it is done. And I think it's important to see yourself, how you believe you would look, how you would act. Really focus on your new self-concept and rest in that. And then you might start to behave like you think you would behave, and that's a good thing. And it might be acting first of all, but then what is it they say? Fake it till you make it, isn't it? It has to go with the resting in the Lord, of course. It has to go with the assumption. But you could start to take on the characteristics. That's something on the outside. But then if the inner belief is in accordance with that, then it's all going to work together to help you become the person you want to be. And then that will bring what you want to you. There's a poem at the end and there's nobody's name by it. So I think it's something that Neville Goddard wrote, because I think he would have given a reference. And I'm just going to read it because it's beautiful. Visions of beauty and splendour, forms of a long-lost race, sounds and faces and voices from the fourth dimension of space. And on through the universe boundless, our thoughts go lightning shod. Some call it imagination, and others call it God. And I think that sums it up, doesn't it? So, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, I would just say, just keep on assuming it's done. And if you forget for a while and it comes to mind, just think, well, it's a fact anyway, it's done. Think it's a fact. And it will be. We have to just keep assuming, but do the groundwork, do the imaginary, think of the imaginary scene, and really walk into the image of yourself, your self-concept. And then as you become it, you will be thinking from new ideas, because you've already achieved that, so there'll be more ideas coming. And that's a really good sign that you believe it's a fact. And that's where you want to go. Okay, I think that's enough. So if you liked it, please like and subscribe. And yeah, I look forward to hearing what you think, and see you next time. Okay, take care everybody. Bye.